Hey everyone, welcome to Box Office Addict 61. This is my weekly live stream podcast where I break down the weekend numbers for you guys and have a free-form discussion with the chat. This is your first episode of the show. I hope you enjoy it. And if you've been here 61 times, well, you're probably in an insane asylum. Which is fine. I'll take a fan from anywhere, quite frankly. I don't care if you work at Taco Bell or if you work at the local library that's not going to exist in 10 years. I accept all donations from everyone. Predator's a flop. Henry Cavill is out, with Michael B. Jordan discussed to be in the DCEU as the first progressively black Superman, and Captain Marvel trailer debuted. What's next? Yeah, we do have a lot of shit going on, don't we? The Captain Marvel trailer was underwhelming, and she's supposed to be integral to Avengers 4. Hey, Null Nation, the Peter Parker to my Tony Stark. How are you doing there, sir? It's good to see you. I hope things are going well with you at the school life. I hope you're not having some Dead Poets Society-esque adventure with a teacher who is going to indirectly contribute to the suicide of your best friend. It's funny, when I was younger and I used to like that shitty film by Peter Weir, I used to think, was his name Mr. Keening? I used to thought that character Robin Williams plays, like, he's inspiring. He teaches them poetry and life and passion. And I watched that movie and I'm like, this guy's the fucking villain of this story. Maybe it's because I have more of a conservative bent now than I did when I was younger, but it's like, Jesus Christ, this guy killed this kid. Holy shit. This guy is a fucking villain. Why are they standing at the table at the end? They should be applauding. Get out of here, Mr. Keenan. We hate you. We hate you. You killed our friend. You fuck. I don't want to read poetry anymore. It just brings up bad feelings. No, I do not have the new Spider-Man game. I would like to have the new Spider-Man game. One, I have no time to play video games because I work all the time. And two, I just don't have the extra money. I mean, I guess I have the money to go buy it, but I need to buy other things before I can go buy a video game. And if I got that game, I'd want to be playing it like all the time, so. Everyone keeps talking to me about it, though. Everybody at fucking work comes up to me and like, hey man, I'm playing the new Spider-Man game. It's amazing. It's Arkham Spider-Man. You playing it? No, I'm not playing it. Quit rubbing it in my face. Hey, I just got a blowjob from 3 women at the same time. You've been doing that? No, not really. Not been doing that. Thanks for sharing, though. Sure does make me feel good about my life. Of course Kanye 2024 is happening. Why would Fox drop $88 million on a Predator film? And what is with Hollywood trying to make mega blockbusters out of movies that were arguably small scale in their time? They have a misguided sense of name recognition with franchises. I mean, you have to think about this. This has been a right and wrong thing. Like, we're going to bring up the Predator as a failure, but think about other franchises that they've done this with that have had success. Now, you could say to me, well, why are they trying to make a new It movie, right? When the original was just this mini-series on television that didn't cost a lot, and it was a book that was 1,000 pages that you can't adapt properly into a movie. Why would they make that for $35 million? The movie makes $700 million, you know? I mean, it depends on what it is. You know, some things stay within pulp culture. They're still relevant in the zeitgeist. Like, I think Space Jam 2 would actually do well. I was just at the store yesterday, and there were Space Jam posters and people walking around with Space Jam shirts. And I was thinking to myself, you know, Space Jam has somehow stayed relevant. I saw that movie in the theater. It's not a very good movie, but for some reason, this whole generation of kids who watched it still have, like, this love for it. And it's still known, and it's like you could make a sequel to that, and it probably would do well. There's some things that I think that works for. There's other franchises, though, that I don't know why they think. You know, like Terminator. Is Terminator really going to make that much money? Even if Terminator 2 was great. I mean, Terminator 2. If a new Terminator film was great, let's say the Tim Miller Terminator film is awesome. Is it still going to make that much money? I don't know if there's an audience for Terminator anymore. Post-Terminator 2. I especially don't think there was ever an audience for Predator. No, I don't think $88 million is a mega blockbuster either. I think, from what I know, that had to do with reshoots. I don't think the original budget was 90 million. I believe that it was much lower than that, and then they had to do reshoots. I mean, I think Predator was just a bad idea. I think it was just a bad idea. I've never understood why they try to milk the Predator franchise. The original Predator made decent money, right? But it was an Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle. That's what the fuck it was. That's back when he was blowing up, like around Commando and that, and this is already after Conan, and this is after Conan the Barbarian. I'm saying Conan like he's the comedian. But Conan the Barbarian, Terminator, right? But the late 80s, Arnold Schwarzenegger was really becoming a superstar. Leading into the early 90s, when you could say he peaked, right? So, the Predator, that was John McTiernan in the late 80s, right before Die Hard. The film did well. It was a sleeper hit. That's about it. Predator 2 didn't do that well. It wasn't a bomb, and I actually like Predator 2. I actually am one of those people who thinks Predator is underrated. Predator's an awesome concept for one movie that did well, but is it a franchise? I'd argue not. It's like Alien. Every time they tried to make another Alien film, you stretch the premise. You can buy that this crew gets this alien on their ship in the first movie, and it kills them off. And then you can even buy that the main character, she goes back, and there's more aliens. But then once you go, okay, now she has to go to another place, and then we have to have another place with aliens. Then we have to go back and explain the aliens. That's all just, it's too much. It's just too much shit. I mean, the Predator franchise has never been this huge franchise financially. Like, Predator 2 wasn't a big hit. Alien vs. Predator did okay. It wasn't some huge hit. It didn't even make 100 million. And you have to wonder how much of that was the Xenomorph contribution. That wasn't just a Predator film. Predators with Adrian Brody in them, that film did okay. It did about the same as this movie. There's only a certain amount of people... You know, there's only... Oh, dude, Predator 2 does get too much flack. I actually really like Predator 2. It is alright. People talk about Predator 2 like it's this terrible movie. It's actually got so much cool stuff about it. The third act is awesome. I just don't get it. Maybe I'm just wrong. I'm confused. I've never understood the hate for Predator 2. But you stretch it, okay? Like, it's not a movie that needs to have 10 sequels. Could you do something cool with Predators? Like the idea that they got dropped on the Predator planet in Predators? I thought that was a pretty fun little movie. It's not a great movie. Don't get me wrong, but I think Predators was okay. It's like an okay little B movie. It could have been a lot better, but it's okay. I enjoyed it. You know, there's the samurai Predator standoff part that's cool. It's like the first movie, and there's some fun scenes, and Lawrence Fishburne's in there. I'm alive, you know? But for the most part, Predator, I just don't think it's that big of an IP. I was shocked they were even making a new Predator movie. I mean, I was excited because Shane Black and Fred Dekker were working on it. They were the guys behind Monster Squad. I was thinking Monster Squad for adults, holy fucking shit. I'm not spoiling the movie now. I'm like, holy shit, that would be awesome. You know? But there's something with Shane Black, whenever he makes a big budget movie these days, where he loses all of his abilities. It's weird, think about it. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is fucking awesome. Then we have to wait a while for another Shane Black movie. And then we get Iron Man 3, which as far as I'm concerned is a fucking horrible movie. Although I know some people love it. I think it's a horrible movie. That turns into Lethal Weapon halfway through and is jarring and the Shane Blackisms don't work. Then he makes The Nice Guys and it's like, oh, this is another good Shane Black movie. Really fun. Good cinematography. Ryan Gosling's really funny in it. It's a fun little movie. You know, it's not a great movie, but it's a decent little flick. Then he makes this and it gets shit reviews again, you know? It's weird with him because I'm a Shane Black fan, don't get me wrong. I mean, Lethal Weapon, and then he worked on the script Lethal Weapon 2. The Last Boy Scout is an amazing movie. The Long Kiss Goodnight's great. I'm a fan of all of those movies. I even like Last Action Hero. And then you go into Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is a terrific movie. That really kind of was kicking off the Robert Downey Jr. comeback with that and Zodiac, and then we got the Iron Man. I was so excited when they announced Shane Black for Iron Man 3. I thought that made the most sense in the fucking world. I was like, holy shit, Downey Jr., Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, level riding Tony Stark. That makes sense. And the movie was nothing like that. The Shane Black, it was some of his weakest dialogue. The villains were terrible. But I don't know what it is with Shane Black. I feel like he's a very good director when he's making a neo-noir or like a cop movie, a buddy movie. He seems to be able to do that very well. I mean, Nice Guys is very well shot and made. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is very well made. But whenever he makes a movie with a budget over like 50 million, I don't know what happens to him. I mean, maybe the studio interfered too much. I don't know why the studio would interfere. Why would they interfere with Shane Black? He made a $1 billion movie. Why would they fuck with him? I mean, I'm assuming they did. But even if they did meddle with it, like, it still shouldn't be as bad as it is. I mean, what do you want from me? You know, I just don't think Shane Black has the chops for it. I think the first Predator, one thing I wouldn't praise it for is its screenplay. I think there's a bunch of funny dialogue that's very quotable. I ain't got time to bleed, which is amazing. I'm not knocking that dialogue. And I like that the movie's Rambo and then it turns into Alien. The structure's clever. But really what makes that film work is the design of the Predator, Arnold Schwarzenegger's screen charisma, the second half of the movie where it's him versus the Predator. It's the filmmaking. John McTiernan's direction is phenomenal. He was a great filmmaker at that time. I mean, think about Die Hard if it wasn't directed as well as it is. It would come off, it could honestly come off gimmicky or like a lot of cheesy 80s action films. It's just impeccably made. Same thing with Predator, same thing with Hunt for Red October. I mean, just listen to John McTiernan commentary tracks. The dude's a fucking genius. He talks about camera work like it's music and keys. He's honestly brilliant. He's just such a smart guy. Blood Money even talked to him recently on the fucking phone. We were talking about interviewing John McTiernan. I'm not even kidding. I have some kind of connection to John McTiernan. I don't know how. Blood Money somehow got a hold of him on the phone. We were talking about trying to do an interview with him. So maybe I'll get to talk to John McTiernan someday and ask him. This small channel be like, what the fuck is with Predator? But great, honestly, highly, if you are a film buff or you are a film student and you want to learn how to make a movie and think about things in a different way, go listen to those John McTiernan commentary tracks, really. He was innovating things in American films. You weren't allowed to cut in a moving camera in a Hollywood movie back then. He had saw this stuff in Paul Verhoeven film. Verhoeven. Like The Fourth Man. Jean de Bont, I think Jean de Bont, however you say his name, but he was a cinematographer on Die Hard. And John McTiernan wanted to start doing that. Like, the idea in a Hollywood movie was you weren't allowed to have a moving camera cut to another moving camera shot. You weren't supposed to edit a movie that way. And he even hired the editor who edited The Deer Hunter, who cut The Deer Hunter, Heaven's Gate, famous editor, and he couldn't figure it out. But then he brought in people that had worked on other things. It was very European. It was a very foreign thing at the time. You didn't really see this in 80s American films. I think he is. Yeah, apparently John McTiernan's really, like, you can get in contact with him. I'm not sure how that works. But he really changed things for action movies. I mean, I would say that you have to credit him and James Cameron and Hong Kong filmmakers. You have to credit Chinese filmmakers like John Woo for how action movies really, in my opinion, probably peaked in the late 80s to early mid-90s. I would say that's some of the best, like, movies like Lethal Weapon and Die Hard and Terminator 2. If we're just talking action choreography, camera work, pacing, how you see things, I mean, all that stuff, the blocking of those scenes, the way everything works, that era for about 10 years, the Joel Silver era, is phenomenal. I mean, even the James Bond films at that time, like the Timothy Dalton films, have great action scenes. There's just a great Rennie Harlan making films like Cliffhanger, awesome action. So there's that period of time there. And I don't know if you can really bring that back with Predator. I mean, the way to make a good Predator movie would be to do what they did with Dredd. I assume, like how Dredd's just stripped down to its bare bones. Maybe if you just made a very muscular film out of Predator, which is what it was. I mean, it was pure testosterone. Maybe if you just said, hey, these are people fighting this thing. We're going back to basics. We're going to make it a little bit, we're going to dive into the science fiction a little bit more. Maybe expand on the mythology slightly in very clever ways. But that's really what Predators did. Predators already did that. That was kind of the sequel I think a lot of people wanted. Even though, you know, I know now people seem to not like that movie. That seems to be a consensus with that film, is that it's not very good. I don't know. I don't think Dredd 2 will happen, no. Hopefully it does. Predator does stand up, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've never loved Predator 1 as much as everyone else does. I admire it a lot. I've never found it to be like this masterwork of action cinema. So I think directing-wise it is, and Arnold and the Predator's design's great, but I much prefer stuff like Die Hard. And honestly, I prefer Hunt for Red October. But I like Predator. I'm not like a hater. I really like the second half. I think the second half's when the movie gets awesome. The first half, I think if it didn't have the good dialogue, it would be like a lot of action movies from that era, and it's just not my... It's like, I'm not the biggest fan of Rambo 2, you know, of Rambo, First Blood Part 2. I like First Blood a lot, but First Blood's really not that kind of movie. Well, Dredd doesn't rip off The Raid, though. Alex Garland wrote the screenplay to Dredd before The Raid was made. He wrote that script years ago about Dredd going up the building to get her. It's just the movie didn't get made for a long time. So he didn't actually rip off The Raid. It was just one of those coincidences. They say they're making 2000 AD with Carl Urban. I'll have to wait and see. I'm skeptical about that happening, or if it'll be good. Quite frankly, it might be a crappy television show. It might have worked as a movie. But that's a misconception that Dredd ripped off The Raid. That's actually not true. Alex Garland came up with that premise years before. He also directed the film, which he did not get credit for. It was the guy who directed Vantage Point, and it was like, why is this a good movie? And now we know Alex Garland actually directed the film. I mean, I think The Raid's better too. I'm not saying it. I mean, I don't think it's as good as The Raid. But it's you know, it's awesome. I love Dredd. I mean, I think Dredd's awesome. I saw that in the theater a couple times. I loved it. I've watched it like 6 times. I think it's great. I like the Thomas Crown Affair remake he made. I like that movie quite a bit. I'd give the first 2 Predator movies a 5, while 2010 Predator was more like a 4. I would go Predator 1, 4 out of 5, Predator 2, 3.5 out of 5, and Predator's like 3 out of 5. There's been no Predator film I would give like a 5 out of 5, personally. Yeah, why would you make a live-action Avatar television series when there's already 60 episodes of an animated show that you're not going to be able to top? It doesn't make any sense to me. I think that Predators could be a 4 out of 5 if it fleshed out its characters a little bit more. Or if it didn't get so campy and stupid with the Topher Grace stuff and him being the bad guy. And the, just kind of how it's derivative in some parts visually of the first film, and how it kind of... I think it sort of falls apart a little bit. I think the first act or two is pretty good, though. I don't think the third act of Predators is very good, unfortunately. Yes, that one, the one with Brosnan, yes. I've talked about One Punch Man extensively. There was one live stream where I talked about One Punch Man, I believe, for like 10 minutes. I said that I was wrong about it, that I didn't watch it because I hate anime fags. And I hate when they praise a show, because most animes I don't think are very good. Just like I don't think most things are very good. It's not like I'm making that exclusive to anime, but most animes I don't like. I used to be a big fan of anime. I guess I'm an otaku. But I didn't watch One Punch Man. I was late to it because I was like, well, this is bullshit. And then I watched it and it's fucking amazing. And I had a whole live stream where I praised it for like 10 minutes. I talked about how great the writing was and I've gotten at least 3 or 4 friends to watch that show that would have never watched it because I told them how amazing it was, and they all became fans of it. So, One Punch Man's amazing. It's I mean, there's nothing can be said that hasn't already been said about it. It's subversion. It's commentary on superheroes. It's the joke that it's the punchline. It's One Punch Man, and the punchline is him punching the guys with one hit. I mean, that's hilarious, and it ends on a punchline. That's so funny. The side characters, the Toriyama influence, but making fun of Akira Toriyama stuff, and thus also making fun of Superman. That stuff's hilarious. The fact that he doesn't wanna... He wants to save this kid because of birth rates these days. And the fact that there's the episode with all the socialists, Antifa supporters, basically, who don't want to work. They're a bunch of guys who don't want to work that are trying to protest for equality. I mean, that stuff just makes my heart sore. It makes fun of socialism. But also being fair to corporate Japan, but capitalism in a modern society, corporate capitalism, individualism, getting a title, ranking. It's got a lot of Watchmen elements. It's very much like Watchmen. With what if you put superheroes in an alternative history of the world, and how do people react to that, and how do the superheroes form teams, and who decides if there's a superhero registration, which is in Watchmen, and that's in One Punch Man. So there's a lot of Alan Moore-esque elements in it, actually, I find. That's what it reminds me of a lot. But laugh out loud funny, awesome action scenes. Saitama's a great lead character. Him being bored is amazing. There's so many funny scenes with that, and yeah, it pretty much just works for me all around. I love One Punch Man. One Punch Man's great. I don't know, you could think Drive has some of the worst direction ever. That's very confusing to me. I mean, it's cool if you don't like the movie, but it's actually pretty well made in a lot of ways. Like, it's actually pretty well shot and put together and well cut. I like Drive. I think Drive's a well-directed movie. I actually think every film he's made after that, although I actually like Only God Forgives. I'm a defender of that movie, but I'm a fan of Nicholas Winding Refn. Yes, media journalism has become a joke. Well, Drive's a movie. It's based in emotion. You know, if the emotions don't win you over, you can't. It's like Leon the Professional, right? If you don't buy into the emotions of that movie, that's not a very good movie. You could say Gary Oldman's over the top. You could say that the pacing's all over the place. You could say that, you know, you have to really buy into the relationship between Natalie Portman and Jean Reno, and you have to feel emotional during those emotional scenes. If you don't, it's not your kind of movie. You know, there's certain movies like that. Drive's one of those movies. If you're not connecting with Refn's style, and you don't like the emotional connection between the characters, you know, then there's not much you can do. That's just it's one of those kinds of films. I think so too, but One Punch Man is so good that I think that criticism doesn't apply to One Punch Man. Also, One Punch Man's commenting on anime more so than it is totally superhero stuff. If you know, it's commenting on the Dragon Ball Z or Fist of the North Star as characters, which I think is more where it's coming from. Yeah, I like Drive too. I think Drive's really good. Unfortunately, Alan Moore even thinks of himself as too much of a genius when he tries to copy his past works. Well, Rob Ager says a lot of stuff sucks. I mean, he says, I don't actually disagree with him on many things either. I think he makes a good case, but whenever he does say something's bad. I don't honestly disagree with him, but he also likes Paul Thomas Anderson films, and I think I could make a great argument for why Phantom Thread is bad and meaningless, and Inherent Vice and The Master. So I guess that's what kind of movies you like in some way. People have been saying Drive sucks since it came out. That was the debate when that movie came out. It was all critically acclaimed and people loved it, and then a bunch of people hated it. I mean, that's what happened with Drive. I mean, that's the same thing with Dark Knight. It was really popular. A lot of people loved it. Then people found flaws with it, and everyone hated it. There was the term Nolan Knight, which you don't see anymore. But it used to be everyone's a Nolan Knight. They just overpraise Christopher Nolan films, and Drive was one of those movies. I mean, everything Rob Egger said, I heard that back in 2011 when the movie came out. That's been the debate with, I mean, that movie's been debated since Tarantino even had it on his list and put Nice Try. And then I think he had Green Lantern on his top 10 list. But he said Drive was a nice try. I don't, honestly, I just don't get the hate for Drive. I get if you don't like Drive, but to say it's like terrible confuses me. I don't know. I thought it would be a movie if I rewatched it, it would be kind of like, because it's not like I don't see the problems people have. Yeah, but he probably likes Phantom Thread and The Master. I know he was talking about PTA one day. PTA hasn't made a good movie since There Will Be Blood. And even There Will Be Blood has big flaws in it. It says, because yeah, I was just talking to Blood Money about how fucking great Boogie Nights is. The first hour of Boogie Nights is perfect. Like, what the fuck happened? Yeah, it's funny when Tarantino says nice try. It's like, yeah, that's what I would say about Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. The most hackiest fucking Shaw Brothers homage I've ever fucking seen. Like, nice try on... Yeah, nice try on trying to do Grindhouse with Death Proof. You think Drive's boring? Watch fucking Death Proof again. Holy shit. Excluding the car chase. Boring as... If Tarantino's name wasn't on that movie, everyone would just agree that movie sucks. Outside of Kurt Russell. People are like, this movie fucking sucks. But because Quentin Tarantino's name on it, there's people are like, yo, I like Death Proof. Boogie Nights is amazing. I don't know how the fuck he made that movie. I don't know what happened to PTA. I guess cocaine. I don't know. He used to be brilliant. I love Sydney. I love Boogie Nights. I love Magnolia. I think those are all great movies. It's a bit of Hal Ashby meets Robert Altman meets Scorsese. I don't know what the fuck happened to PTA. I mean, There Will Be Blood is a great 2-hour movie that's 3 hours. And I love There Will Be Blood. I've seen There Will Be Blood over 10 times. I saw it in the theater 3 times. I'm a big fan. But it's about a great 2-hour movie of Daniel Day-Lewis going around being an asshole and beating up Paul Dano. That's amazing. It's just when he's trying to be like, I'm making an artsy masterpiece. It's like, no, it didn't need to be this movie. It's honestly just a great comedy in a lot of ways. I think There Will Be Blood's one of the great modern comedies. Love it. I mean, I don't want to make it like I don't like There Will Be Blood. I think it's great. I think that's up there with Boogie Nights and Magnolia and all that. But since that movie, yeah, Joaquin Phoenix is brilliant in The Master. Is brilliant. So is Phil Hoffman. There's good scenes, but holy shit, what a mess. Inherent Vice is terrible. There's people who defend that movie, and it just blows my fucking mind. I don't know what the fuck is going on. And I have friends who love Inherent Vice. And then, yeah, Phantom Thread was completely disappointing. I've never got to talk about that movie. I never did a review for it. I know your movie sucks, and them all loved it, but me and Blood Money, we were going to do the first episode of our podcast on Phantom Thread and how just disappointed we both were, and how we completely failed at trying to make this gothic, Hitchcockian... and not just that, the literary influences and all that stuff. There was a lot to uncover. It's funny, PTA talking about the movie and the premise of the film is more interesting than the movie when I'm watching it. Because in many ways, it's the most red-pilled film ever. There's that scene in The Shining where Shelley Duvall comes and shakes Jack. And he looks at her and he goes, what the fuck are you talking about? Which is hilarious if you've ever been in a relationship. And there's moments like that in Phantom Thread where he's like, I'm trying to eat and you're making noise with your chewing. Shut the fuck up and let me do work. It's hilarious. There's scenes in Phantom Thread I like that. But the praise of that movie just baffles me. I just find his recent films to be empty. I get what he's going for. I'm not dumb. It's not like I don't understand what Paul Thomas Anderson's doing. I just think his directing style's lost energy. I think he's gotten up his own ass a little bit. And he's turned his what was a style that was very Tarantino-esque, high energy, funny dialogue, quotable, into just films that meander, that have no focus dramatically. They have no focus. Their structures are usually pretty poor. I think he has too many ideas mixed together, and they're not meshing well like they used to in something like Magnolia. I mean, I can't believe the same guy who made that film. He's like the opposite of David Fincher to me, where David Fincher's become more restrained with time. But I think about Zodiac and Social Network and all that, how that's different from Fight Club. And then I think about PTA, and it's like he's trying to do the same thing, like he wants to grow as a filmmaker. But I think he's just gone backwards. I would much prefer if he did something like Boogie Nights. But that's just me. I know different people think PTA is genius and everything he does is great. I'm not trying to say, like, you're wrong if you like Paul Thomas Anderson. I just haven't liked the last several Paul Thomas Anderson films. And every time I get my hopes up, like this is going to be the one, and then I'm just disappointed again. My theory is that There'll Be Blood went to his head. That he got so much acclaim for being a genius and it being the masterpiece. A lot of people consider that the best film of the decade that it was in. I think it went to his head a little bit. I think he bought his own hype. And I think he's been trying to recreate that kind of like, I'm going to make a masterpiece. I think he sets out and thinks about it that way instead of just telling a story or writing fully realized characters. I mean, I actually think Phantom Thread is better than Inherent Vice and The Master. I think Phantom Thread's his best movie in a while. I don't hate Phantom Thread. I'm making it like I hate the movie. I don't hate Phantom Thread. I think it's okay. But I definitely wasn't blown away by it. I wasn't that impressed. Although I wasn't impressed by a lot of stuff last year that people were blown away. Shape of Water didn't impress me that much. So maybe I'm just turning into a Grinch. I don't know. I mean, No Country for Old Men's great until the third act. The first two acts are awesome. It's like Fargo meets Blood Simple. I mean, I think No Country for Old Men for the first two acts is like an amazing movie. It's got the seriousness and like irony and fun of Blood Simple, and then it's got the humor of Fargo and the quirkiness mixed together. I mean, there's so many good scenes. It's just the third act's terrible. I know people defend it like it's about evil and good dying in the nature, and Tommy Lee Jones' dream is brilliant because that's what the whole movie's about. But the problem is in the book, the character is the narrator. Tommy Lee Jones, he's more of a presence. He's not really the protagonist of the movie, and people claim he is, but the protagonist is Llewellyn. Like, I don't know why people try to claim it's an art film at the end. You just wanted it to be this action film with the final... Well, that's what the film was presented as. It was presented as Llewellyn versus Anton. That was the whole fucking movie. That was the structure of the movie. It wasn't this artsy film that it turns into. It turns into a completely different film. For the first two acts, it's like a fucking thriller. Just straight up. Like, there's so many good scenes in that movie that are so fucking awesome. Like, when Josh Brolin is the one, he jumps in the water and that dog's swimming after him, and then he has to get the gun and there's the water in the gun, and then he shoots the dog last second before the dog gets him. That's awesome. That's such good stuff. Or the call it scene with the coin. We gotta know what we're calling it for. Everything. Just call it. The scene at the hotel where you see the doorknob pop off and Llewellyn's waiting there with the light, and then he runs outside and goes... That stuff's all great. That's real. That's some of the Coen brothers' best stuff. The cinematography is some of the best cinematography of that decade. I love it. It's just, yeah, once you get to that point where it fades to black and then you walk and Tommy Lee Jones finds Llewellyn dead after the stuff where he's like, gets on the phone like, I'm going to make you a mission of mine. I'm coming after you. And you're like, fuck yeah, here we go. And then Llewellyn just gets killed off camera. And then it turns into like this ultimate film about good and evil and humanity and where the world's going. And not bad scenes. Those aren't bad scenes in the third act. Tommy Lee Jones going to talk to the guy, his uncle or whatever, isn't a bad scene. Anton going to find the wife isn't a bad scene, but just completely falls apart. I saw that film 3 times in the theater trying to make that ending work for myself. And I've talked to so many people are like, dude, it's great. It's like the Sopranos ending. It's like, I get it. I'm not dumb. I get what the fade to black with Tony Soprano fucking means. I understood it then. I understood that he fucking tells the story about it just fades to black. I understand Tony, it just goes to black because he gets fucking shot. And it's I get it. I'm not stupid. I get that that's what the fuck... It's still bullshit. It doesn't work. It's not good storytelling. Quit trying to convince me that's good storytelling. Because it's artistic. Okay, it's somebody going too far, and they don't pull it off. It doesn't... The Sopranos, that last minute's so tense. With the fucking Journey song, Don't Stop Believing, playing out. But don't fucking give me that shit. They're like, oh, it fades to black. It's brilliant. It's like, no, it's just bad storytelling. It's cheap. It's gimmicky. It's gimmicky in an art way that other films would be gimmicky in different ways. It's just because it's artsy, you don't want to call it gimmicky and drawing too much attention to itself to say, look what I can do. Now, other movies do that stuff brilliantly. I'm not saying that that kind of ending doesn't work. Akira has an ending like that. 2001 has an ending like that, and those endings work. Where they just get more abstract and up to interpretation and cerebral. That's interesting. But I don't think it works either way for No Country for Old Men. And I don't think it works. Yeah, it just doesn't work. If it worked, it would work. I don't think it's really like, I get that this stuff's subjective. I love The Sopranos too. I just don't think that's good storytelling. I don't think the whole last season was good. I mean, that's the thing people ignore when they're like, well, the ending wasn't great. I'm like, the whole last 2 seasons of The Sopranos weren't great. After season 4, The Sopranos has a huge dip in quality. Big time. And the last season has a bunch of filler, and it's kind of losing its thread. I mean, they don't wrap up Tony's storyline with the cops, which was interesting. Him and Christopher's relationship totally is anticlimactic. I mean, fuck that scene. They were going for some kind of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing or Breaking Bad-ass thing with what he does to Christopher, which now we're getting Sopranos. I don't like it. I don't like what fucking happens to Christopher Montesanti. Christopher was my favorite character on that show. Michael Imperioli's fucking genius. And the way that fucking that ends up is such bullshit to me. Like, wouldn't it be a more interesting story? There's so much endings that are more interesting. Like, if Christopher took over, right? And he was this fucked up, drugged out leader now. And then he goes and kills Tony at the end. And Tony's like, I fucked up. I should have killed this fucker. What if the Russian guy from the Pine Barrens episode came back and shot Tony? Holy shit. There's a fucking twist. That guy's still alive. Thank you, David Chase. He was an interior decorator. His apartment looked like shit. That stuff, there's so many more interesting threads. What does Tony go, have some trials, have him go, the cops actually have a case against him, you know? Instead, The Sopranos, it honestly starts to feel like a parody of itself. Remember that old guy? They send him to go kill that guy and his son's not, that whole scene's just cringe and doesn't feel like what the show was. And I love The Sopranos. It's definitely one of my 10 favorite shows of all time. Top 10 favorite shows, top 5 even, probably is The Sopranos. I think as you're talking shows that have great standalone episodes, The Sopranos is as high ranked as any show ever. As like Seinfeld, The Simpsons. There's so many. Well, I mean, if you see, that's the problem. You can't do that with Breaking Bad, though. You can't just like, I'm gonna watch deaths from season 2, 3, 4. Then you're missing out on a lot of the nuance and fun of like the Gus Fring stuff in season 3 and 4. That's the best stuff of the show. I think the last season of Breaking Bad actually fucking sucks. Personally, I think the ending's terrible. That blew the whole like, this is the greatest show ever for me. It's like, one, this isn't Deadwood. This isn't The fucking Wire. This isn't as good as a bunch of shows I've seen. It's a good show, and that ending blows. No, it is a bad scene. Tony and Christopher's scene is tonally wrong. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't even really feel believable that Tony would do that for me. I think it stretches his character's morality a bit too much for me. Because whenever anybody Tony killed in the past, you always understood why he did it on some level, but also it wasn't somebody that close to him either. It's like when he like kills I can't remember the character's name, but it's during the Brilliant season 3 and the guy from Bound and Risky Business, Joe Pantoliano or whatever, when he kills him because he kills the horse. Okay, that's whatever, right? And when he kills Christopher's girlfriend, he orders her. That makes sense. But him killing Christopher, I don't buy it. I really, even him killing his cousin Stu Buscemi, I could sort of buy. But him killing Christopher, I don't know. I just don't really buy. Also, the logic of it isn't that great to me. That Chris is going to talk to the cops because he's on drugs, and Tony knows he's a loose end. I don't know. I don't really buy that. I think it was faulty logic to have a shocking death scene instead of actually like taking the story to its natural conclusion. The car scene's just bad. It's cheesy. That was an issue. There was a lot of tonal issues with the end of The Sopranos. I mean, a lot of shows. I mean, I'll do the opposite. 6 Feet Under has a perfect ending. Brilliant. Six Feet Under season 4 is the one that gets gimmicky with the wife's murder, and you're like, oh my god, this is turning into like a fucking soap opera. And then season 5, they come back and it's fucking brilliant. And you're like, holy shit, what the hell happened? Oh yeah, no, David Simon, for sure. A lot of those cable shows, the long shows, definitely get caught up in self-importance. It's because they get so popular and acclaimed that it catches up. You know, originally you just have this good idea, and you have this thing you want to make, and then everyone starts to call you a genius, and that's dangerous. It's really dangerous. Especially when you're doing a TV show, because it's not like you're leaving to go do a different movie. You're not going from Raging Bull to the King of Comedy to After Hours. You have to keep telling a story with the same characters. It's very difficult. I think writing a television show like that for like 5 seasons is very difficult. I think you usually have 1 or 2 seasons of material you've probably thought of for years in your head. And then you get to that point where you have to start writing it. You don't have the material that you had for years. You know, think how many ideas David Chase had brewing in his head from The Sopranos for years. Because he wanted to make that back as a movie in the mid-90s. So, but then you get to the point you have to start just writing it. It's a hit. You don't have unlimited ideas anymore. Also, I've just never liked David Chase as a person. Brilliant writer, but the comments he made about Northern Exposure. It's like, the stuff he was saying about that's like the exact same fucking thing you did with The Sopranos. It's ridiculous. Well, it can affect your quality because you're writing this thing and it's like you're in this little bubble with these people and it's special. But then everybody becomes aware of it and you start to get fan theories, and I think it affects how the mindset you're in when you're writing it. I think it's probably very difficult. Like Stranger Things season 2 to Stranger Things season 1, I think the Duffers had this idea, they made it, and then everybody had all these expectations and theories for season 2, and I think it put this pressure on them. And they didn't really plan to turn this into some big show. I don't think they ever thought it would turn into this cultural phenomenon. You know, I think that happens to people. I don't blame anyone either. I'm not acting like I'm better than anyone. Like, I think doing a television show is very hard. I think it's very hard work to keep writing something that long. I think it catches up with you. That's why a lot of comic books that I love go to shit. That's why there isn't that many classic comic book runs. I mean, there's a lot, but really if you add up how many comic books have been written, how many runs are actually legitimately great classic runs? Yeah, I mean, the Duffers stole some of those ideas for sure. But, you know, Stranger Things season 1, though, was fresh. The stuff with the facility was more fresh, the monster, the finding out things about Eleven, the D&D stuff, you know, and some of it felt a little derivative in season 2. And they knew that people loved Steve Harrington, so they put him in it more. They knew that people loved Dustin. They knew that they were fan favorites, where they kind of organically became fan favorites in the first season. You know, there's a difference between how Heisenberg was written in the early seasons to the point in the last season where he's like, you know who I am. You all know. Say my name. Heisenberg, you're goddamn right. That's being written by a guy who knows that's going to be quoted the next day on Twitter and Facebook. Vince Gilligan's writing that knowing that everybody loves Heisenberg. Everybody loves Bryan Cranston. It's written to be cool. You must tread lightly. It's written to be that way. There's a difference between that and the scene in season 2 where he goes to the store and he sees the guy buying stuff to make meth, and then he grabs the paint buckets and goes outside, and that TV on the radio song comes on, la 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 la, and he goes, "Stay out of my territory." You know, that's an awesome organic moment where it's like, oh, this dude's Breaking Bad. He's becoming a bit of a badass. To where, like, you know, they're writing quotable. It's a little more self-aware. There's a difference. The first 2 seasons of Black Mirror are phenomenal, so yes, you're missing out. I would say Black Mirror hasn't been that good since then, although some people disagree. The first 2 seasons of Black Mirror are great. And the White Christmas episode with John Hamm. So yes, go watch that. The British run of Black Mirror is phenomenal. It's only about 9 episodes. You could watch it in like a day. So I would say you're missing out if you're not watching Black Mirror. I watched the first 2 seasons of Better Call Saul, but it bored the fuck out of me. I thought there was episodes that were good, but yeah, I just got so bored I stopped watching it. I watched it for 2 seasons. And I thought occasionally there'd be an episode that had energy like Breaking Bad, and it would be really good, but then I thought it would be so boring. I mean, it just felt like it was dragging its feet to get to the Sal part. I felt like it was making no progress. It really felt like it was going in circles to me, and I saw these critics praising it, saying it was genius, and I just didn't. There's episodes of Better Call Saul that are great. I'm not acting like there isn't, but there's other episodes that were just like, this is filler. I think the last couple seasons have had more than one lame episode. I think season 3 and 4 are like half good, half bad. For sure. I would not say every season. I'd say season 4 has like 3 or 4 lame episodes. And season 3 probably has 3 or 4 lame episodes. I don't think there's legitimately great episodes. I think season 1 and 2, like every other episode's great to a classic. Where now Black Mirror, you might get 1 good episode a season, and then the rest are like okay. But I mean, it's not like, to me, it's not like the classics of those first couple seasons. I mean, I don't think he'll ever top like episode 2 of the first season, or like. I don't think Charlie Brooker will ever. I think also Netflix kind of hurt it. Now the show's too long. You know, I don't think anthology shows really work when they're too long. The Twilight Zone, there's that 1 season that's an hour and it doesn't work as good. I don't think the Bang the Pig episode's the lamest episode ever. I think the Bee episode's the worst episode ever in season 3. I think the Pig episode's great. I don't understand how anybody doesn't love the Pig episode. I think the Pig episode's fucking amazing. I disagree. I've heard some people say they dislike that. I think the Pig episode's astonishing. That's what got me hooked on the show, is the Pig episode. I think the Bee episode's much worse than that. I think the episode with the 5-star rating thing that Joe Wright directed is much worse than that. I think I think the episode where the girl's going through the game that everyone's playing on her because she killed a kid is worse than the Pig episode. I think there's a lot of episodes that are not as good as the Pig one. Oh, episode 7's bad. It's really, really bad. It's not supposed to be scary, though. The pig thing's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be gross. That like all the scenes the scene that's relevant to the pig thing is where everybody wants it. The public wants him to bang the pig. And then once they actually start seeing him fuck the pig, you see everyone's facial reactions where they go, oh, I actually didn't want to see him bang that pig. And you see that feeling of like, shit, we didn't want this. And then you find out that they really didn't have the information, the trolls, but it ruined this guy's life. Showing you how the internet and public outcry and all this. It's the premise of Black Mirror, which every episode's basically about. In the first episode, it's him showing you the premise that how technology is hurting us as individuals because of the collective that it's able to get, the tribalism that it creates. You know, that's in that first episode. That's what's. I know a lot of people don't like the pig episode. I think a lot of people just have an issue with the guy banging the pig. I think that bothers them. I think they can't connect that for some comedic reason, or they can't get the fucked up nature of it. Because I think that's as fucked up as anything. I wouldn't want to fuck a pig. I like parts of the Star Trek episode. It just won the Emmy I don't like how he views Star Trek or his commentary on it, but I definitely like the guy whose son Danny or whatever, that character, and him telling them. I like that character a lot for sure. I thought he was great. Isn't that the guy who plays McPoyle on It's Always Sunny? I don't know if it's the same. That guy's great though. He's the best part of that episode, the Star Trek episode. I mean, I like San Junipero. I like other episodes of Black Mirror, obviously. I think White Christmas might be the best one with John Hamm. Or the one where they put the thing in your eyes, and then the guy wants to find out if his wife cheated on him, and he's tracking down the memories. That's fucking scary. Holy shit. Because that completely seems like something that could happen in the next 20 years. I mean, that definitely could seem like something that would really get to you. But yeah, if you're asking me, out of a lot of the Black Mirror scenarios, one of the top ones I wouldn't want to do is fuck the pig. I would take a lot of other Black Mirror situations. But I think what hurt the show is the length. It wasn't an hour-long show, just like The Twilight Zone. Anthology really doesn't work unless it's like a half hour, 43 minutes. The best episodes of Black Mirror, I find, are the ones that aren't like over an hour. And then the Netflix ones, some of these episodes are like 80 minutes. That B episode's 90 minutes. It's like, what the fuck? It's boring as fuck. I just think Charlie Brooker as a writer probably works better in shorter form. Because they're supposed to play like short stories. That's what the anthologies are like at their best. They play like a short story. And what's great about short stories. And I feel like when you get it more to cinematic length, when you're going over an hour, you lose that. You lose the rhythms that sort of make it work. Yeah, but the Twilight Zone wasn't always scary. Like, what do you talk? The Twilight Zone, some of the best episodes aren't scary. Walking Distance? Yeah, there's a 90-minute episode of Black Mirror with the bees. Yeah, Walking Distance, maybe the best episode of the Twilight Zone, where the guy walks back to his hometown when the cars broke down, and then he goes back to the past to when he was a kid. And he realizes that he can't get that back, and his father realizes what's going on, and then he gets hurt, his leg, he falls off the Ferris wheel. That's not scary. It's profound. It has a message. The Twilight Zone wasn't like a horror show. It was all sorts of things. It's more cautionary tales of Black Mirror. Yeah, they play like short films. Yeah, when anthologies are great, I think that's when they're at their best. I don't think they actually work when you make them longer. I think that hurt Black Mirror. Netflix gave it more money, and they said make longer episodes. And then they started making these hour-long episodes, which I don't think... Yeah, I don't think a lot of Black Mirrors... I mean, there's scary ideas. The idea of the memory thing with the eye, that's scary. That's definitely scary. If you could find out what actually happens with people. Like, if nobody would be able to hide anything anymore, that would definitely be a scary situation. But, you know, that's whatever. I mean, if you know... If the pig episode ain't your kind of thing, that's fine. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like the pig episode. They don't like the show until episode 2. I like the pig episode. I think it's great. I've not seen Ozark. I'm aware of it, though. I mean, there's scary episodes of The Twilight Zone. I think there's legitimately creepy episodes of The Twilight Zone. I'm not acting like The Twilight Zone's not scary. It's just not every episode was scary. Depends on the episode. Alright, let's get to the box office. Let's just skip some that don't need to be updated on, like Jurassic World 2. We already know what that made. Equalizer 2 is at 180 million. 102 million domestic. That passes the first film's 101 million. 192 million worldwide for the first film. This one's budget's a little bit higher. If it reaches 200 million worldwide, I would say it's a total success. Going up a little bit here. Ant-Man and the Wasp continues to have a good late run. $215 million domestically, $617 million worldwide because of the boost from China, $401 million foreign. The first film made $519 million worldwide, so this made about $100 million more. Not bad. I still think this could have made 700 million if they would have done some things differently, but overall not a bomb by any means. And it's not like Disney needed this to be the biggest hit. Hotel Transylvania 3, which I actually watched recently, so I might do a review of this movie, is the third in the highly popular franchise, the Adam Sandler Sony animated franchise. 165 million domestic, that puts it ahead of the first film, just behind the second film. Worldwide, this is the highest grossing film of the franchise, which has made $473 million worldwide previously. This also makes it Adam Sandler's biggest film ever. His top 3 films are all Hotel Transylvania. Now, obviously, adjusted for ticket price inflation, it would probably be like The Waterboy or Big Daddy, because that made $300 million. I mean, those were huge hits. Big Daddy and The Waterboy that's when Adam Sandler was like super famous. Because obviously those movies probably would have made like, you know, $500 million back then. But yeah, still, this is extremely successful. $80 million budget, $500 million worldwide, from Genndy Tartakovsky, the great Genndy Tartakovsky, Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack. I'm happy for him. And this film's really, honestly, it's much better than the second film, which I hated. I was very disappointed by it. I love the first Hotel Transylvania. I think it's a classic Halloween movie. I think it's the best Adam Sandler movie in like 20 years. But this film, it was okay. It's not great though. I was once again disappointed, but it's an okay kids film. Alpha, from one of the Hughes brothers, made $34 million. It was made $34 million domestic, $68 million worldwide on a $51 million budget. I would say that has not broke even yet. The Wife made $1.1 million this weekend. Made $3.4 million so far. That's Glenn Close. Operation Finale made $1.1 million this weekend. $16.3 million domestic on a $24 million budget, from Chris Weitz, the About a Boy American Pie director. Black Klansman continues to be Spike Lee's most successful film in years, and one of his most successful films in general. $45 million domestic, $72 million worldwide on a $15 million budget. This is bigger than, you know, Malcolm X and Do the Right Thing, obviously not adjusted, but outside of Inside Man, which was just a hit, this is Spike Lee's most successful film. So love it or hate it, which a lot of people do, there's a lot of division on this film, it is doing well. A lot of that has to do with the budget being low, though. I mean, don't get me wrong, if this was like a $30-40 million film, that wouldn't look as good. But Spike Lee was a director whose movies were not making any money. So even with that context, you have to give it credit. Although pretty big drop this weekend, 51%. Disney's Christopher Robin, 36% drop, $2.1 million. Looks like it's going to reach $100 million, which it didn't seem it was going to do a few weeks ago. $75 million budget from the director of Finding Neverland. $154 million worldwide. I don't know if this film's broke even. I don't see a lot of profit being made from this film. And I'd say it's a disappointment. I'm thinking they thought it was going to make a lot more than this. Especially compared to the other live-action Disney, you know, animated adaptations they've been doing. Unbroken, Path to Redemption, $2.2 million. Is this a sequel to that Angelina Jolie Unbroken movie that made a bunch of money? That was that book? That's weird. What the fuck is this? Anyway, $1,600, $1.6 million, 1,600 theaters, what I meant to say. Oh, it's actually, is it in 1,600 theaters? Yeah, 1,620. That's a bomb. That's just a flat out bomb. I don't know if Hotel Trans, I can't remember, to be fair with you. I don't know if I'll have time to do the Patrick Williams thing today. I planned on doing it all week, but work made it very tough. I have to go pick someone up at 3, so I don't actually have a lot of time today. That's why I scheduled this Box Office Addict, to let you guys know it was starting at 1, so you guys could tune in. I actually set the time for this one to be like, you guys need to show up, because I don't know how long this episode's going to go. This isn't your typical episode where I just go as long as I want to. I am going to have to end this one at a certain time. Unfortunately, because I would do a long show. You know. I don't think it was a domestic bomb. You have to take the context of Mission Impossible 6. The Mission Impossible franchise after 2 hasn't been a big domestic hit. 3, 4, and 5, I mean, 4 and 5 both made about $200 million domestic. So it's done about the same as the last two movies. I wouldn't say it's a bomb. We do more shorter snippet episodes in the future. What do you mean? I don't know exactly what you mean. Anyway, Mission Impossible Fallout is a major success. Past that 750 million worldwide, it's become Tom Cruise's most successful film. Obviously not adjusted for ticket price. That would be Top Gun and Rain Man and all that, or the first two Mission Impossibles. Now it's officially the biggest film of the franchise, both domestically and worldwide, not adjusted once again. The Mission Impossible 2 made 215 million. This one's now at 216. 760 million worldwide. A lot of that has to do with the huge box office in China. $178 million budget, plus a big marketing campaign. I'm assuming this film's broken even. This looks like it could make 800 million, which was the high-end expectation. The high-end expectation was 800 million. The low end was 650. And a lot of people said about 700 to 750. I even said 700, 750. It looks like this is going to make $800 million, though. So I'd say this is a big hit all around. The opening weekend wasn't much better than Rogue Nation's 55 million. Now, if you actually even look adjusted, Ghost Protocol did great domestically. 246, made 700 million worldwide. This is right under Rogue Nation's 219. This isn't anywhere near the first two films' 370 million plus domestic takes. And then 3, it's definitely making a lot more. But this international number, $544 million internationally. That's huge. I'd say this is done as well as they could have hoped for. Critically, 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, 86 on Metacritic. I think it'll get a couple Oscar nominations, technical ones. Tom Cruise one of his best reviewed films, and one of his most successful films. There should probably be a Mission Impossible 7, I'm assuming. I'd say this, I mean, the high-end expectations would have been this could have done $250 million domestically. But the word of mouth wasn't bad. It held well weekend to weekend. And the international box office is as good as they could have hoped for. Honestly, I'd say 760 million worldwide would be a good total, and it's not done yet. They still have a few more weeks of release. It's been open everywhere, but this should be able to make $220 million domestic at least. And I think worldwide it could reach 800 million. So for Christopher McQuarrie, who directed the previous film, which made 682 million, since they kind of soft rebooted this franchise with the fourth film by Brad Bird, this is now a very successful franchise. It's just Tom Cruise's stardom in this franchise in America. I think this franchise should be making 300 million domestic. I think the last few films should have all been bigger hits. It's just more of an international franchise now than it was back when it started. It seems like a Mission Impossible film can only make about $200 million. I don't think there's a chance it could do much more than that. Although I much prefer it to like the Fast and Furious franchise. Searching, the well-reviewed John Chu film, which is a thriller based around the web and all that. 3.1 million this weekend, 30% drop, $19 million domestic, 45 million worldwide, which I think is a pretty damn good total. So if this film could make 50, 60 million worldwide, I'd say it's a success. The Meg continues to be a surprise hit at the box office domestically. 36% drop, 3.8 million this weekend, $137 million domestically, 506 million worldwide on a $130 million budget. Huge success for Warner Brothers, co-financed by a Chinese production house, I think. It's been doing really well in China. But Jason Statham, this is a big deal for him. This is his first solo lead film in years. It's been a hit. The director of Cool Runnings and Three Ninjas and National Treasure. Who knew this would be such a successful movie? I mean, I thought it would make like $300 million worldwide, maybe, but I wouldn't have ever thought $500 million. This is a definite surprise all around. It looks like it should make $140 million domestic, if not a little bit more. Good multiplier from its opening weekend. And worldwide, I think it's about done. But, I mean, I think this has gone above all expectations. I don't think anyone thought this film would do this well. I don't think Warner Brothers thought it would do this well. Peppermint, in its second weekend, had a 55% drop, which is pretty steep. It only has a $25 million budget from the director of Taken, starring Jennifer Garner, who's really not been in Hollywood around that much. But after a surprisingly okay opening weekend, film isn't holding that well. Crazy Rich Asians continues to be a huge hit at the box office, biggest rom-com in years. 33.9% drop, $8.6 million this weekend, $149 million domestically, $188 million worldwide from John Chu. the director of Step Up 3D, my favorite movie ever. Also directed Now You See Me Too, which was a big hit. So he's actually had a pretty good career the last few years here. $30 million budget. The film doesn't look like it's going to reach that 180 that it looked like it was going to do a couple weeks ago, Labor Day weekend, when it was still booming. But film should still be able to make 165 million domestic, over 200 million worldwide. So it hasn't opened everywhere yet. So this is a very successful movie, and they are definitely going to be making sequels. White Boy Rick had a disappointing opening weekend from Matthew McConaughey. Are we at the end of the McConaissance? That's been the debate that we read a few years ago with Killer Joe and Mud and True Detective and all that stuff. And Wolf of Wall Street is great cameo. $29 million budget, $8.8 million opening weekend at 2,500 theaters. This film got mixed reviews. I was really excited about this film and the trailer and everything, but it seems like from TIFF that Roma's the front runner for Best Picture now. First Man got great reviews. The new Steve McQueen film Widows is getting raved on. Which I'm very excited because I'm a big Steve McQueen fan. A lot of people saying it's one of his, arguably his best film. The new film from Barry Jenkins, even though I'm not a big Moonlight fan, is very critically acclaimed. A lot of films I'm very excited to see that they're getting buzzed. This film called High Life with Robert Pattinson from a great director. Science fiction film, getting rave reviews. And Robert Pattinson now I'm a fan of after Good Time. So a lot of those films look out to be in the Oscar race. We're getting into Oscar season. A Simple Favor. $16 million opening weekend. Surprisingly good. This is a shockingly decent opening weekend for a film that didn't have a big marketing push. It stars Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. This is Paul Feig's return to movies after the disaster that was Ghostbusters. After a very successful career with Bridesmaids, The Heat, Spy, not Ghostbusters, Unaccompanied Minors. Remember that film? Co-created Freaks and Geeks and worked on episodes of The Office. But anyway, $60 million opening weekend. I mean, that's not a great opening weekend. This isn't like, whoa, breakout hit. But that's certainly not a terrible opening weekend. That's better than a lot of films that have come out in the same kind of genre. So we'll have to wait and see how word of mouth on this is. This is a better reviewed film than his last movie. This isn't as well. Spy was actually pretty well reviewed, but we'll have to wait and see on this, but not a bad opening weekend. I think it's better than. Although I think Anna Kendrick's kind of a star that Hollywood hasn't fully embraced yet. Oh yeah, no, Rob Pattinson's amazing. Steve McQueen, the director, not the actor Steve McQueen. Yeah, Get Out is very overhyped for sure. Very much so. Well, you know, that's all we can go off, though, Sean. I mean, that's always the issue, Sean. We're never going to know the actual numbers of anything because they're never going to tell us. So we have to just go off what's reported. Because then I'm just guessing. I have to say this is what the marketing cost was. This is what the budget was. You know, I don't believe it either, but what else do? Otherwise, I'm just making numbers up. I have to go with what's reported because that's literally all we have. If we knew what the actual profits were on movies, and if we actually knew, you know, then that would be different, but we're never going to know, so, you know, there's no reason in trying to guess, because you're just wrong, you know. But you had 3 or 4 times the budget for box office and advertisement, so if it makes 3 or 4 times the budget to break even, MI6 barely passed the original budget, now it's not a domestic bomb. A bomb means that the movie's like a flop, and you don't technically say like this is a domestic bomb. It depends on what expectations are. There's a bunch of facets. It's a multifaceted equation. A film just isn't a bomb because it didn't make its money back domestically because it wasn't a domestic hit. That's not totally how it works. No. And it's not 4 times to break even. No, that's not the expectation. It's usually, they say the rule of thumb is about 2.5 times what the budget and marketing stuff is, but they knew Mission Impossible 6 wasn't going to make $300 million domestic. You have to include context. They didn't make that film to make $300 million domestic. They knew that going into it wasn't going to make that. They knew it was going to be an international hit. So you have to think about it in that way. You can't go like it flopped domestically because it was never planned to be that kind of film. It depends on the success of how the film was designed. It's like a James Bond film. They don't make those movies to be the biggest hits domestically. They do well domestically, but the idea is they can make most of their money in the foreign box office. So you have to look at it that way, sort of. Every film's different. The Fast and the Furious franchise, for instance, that's all about the international box office. I would say the 216 mil domestic is a win for Mission Impossible 6 because that just adds to their worldwide total, thus their profits. I think they won because a lot of people didn't know if the film would make more than $200 million domestic. But with that, with the international box office, then yeah, they break even and make a profit. Let's say if it was 150 million, that would be a lot more disappointing. I would say that it overperformed domestically, if anything. So if the studio's happy with that total and it looks good on paper, because they get to claim, this is the highest grossing film of the franchise, even though it's technically not. I mean, the term is subjective. What some people consider to be a flop or a bomb is different. I mean, it's definitely a different... I don't think any... I think everyone has their own definitions. I mean, you're not technically wrong. It definitely wasn't a profitable film if we were just going off the domestic box office. That would be correct. But we can't just be talking about the domestic box office, because that's not the only... The studio's making money from the foreign, too. This isn't like back in the day when they used to only get, like, 40% or less of the... Now, China, sometimes you don't get the majority of the money. Yeah, Jim does seem a little bit, like, more pissed off, or a little bit more, like, I don't know. There's something about Jim that seems a little off right now. And I love Jim. I think Jim's hilarious, but he does seem like he's got, like... His hate seems more directed now than it used to be. Oh, I'm glad Bathory was able to hear. My wonderful sidekick, moderator Bathory. I'm glad she's here. This has been a real serious box office addict. I was listening to last week where I'm just being an asshole for an hour. Less comedy this week. Some weeks it's comedy, some weeks it's just serious, and other weeks it's just analytical. This show's very inconsistent. Anyway, The Nun had a huge second week drop, which was expected with the terrible reviews and the word of mouth. It got like a C+. I don't think anybody thought this film was going to hold well after its mega opening weekend of 53 million. 66% drop, 18.2 million this weekend, $85 million domestic. Having said that, though, the film still made $229 million worldwide on a budget of 22 million. And it should be able to make over 300 million worldwide, like the other two films in the Conjuring franchise. So this is a successful movie. Let's make that very clear. I think if James Wan had directed this film could have maybe made $400 million or $500 million, honestly. I think he would have made a better movie. But he's off doing Aquaman. But, the Conjuring 1 and 2 both made about 320 million worldwide. It's pretty much exactly what they made, and this is a big franchise. I mean, this just shows you the strength of the franchise. Also, the title, The Nun, the marketing was good. Horror's back. It made $700 million. Annabelle films were huge hits. I mean, just look. I think Annabelle Creations on here. Yeah, look, Annabelle, which is a spinoff of The Conjuring, 306 million worldwide on a $15 million budget. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, Annabelle 1 made 257 million worldwide. So, like, yeah, this franchise is definitely well established. These types of horror films, the Insidious films do well. But so yeah, even though The Nun had a great opening weekend, it definitely had a big drop. This film's already making money. It should be able to easily make over $300 million worldwide, over $100 million domestically. I think it would have made a lot more had it been a better movie. But still, they make movies to make profit. This film's making a profit. James Wan will definitely get a nice chunk of change from this as a producer. So, definitely not a bomb. Yeah, Medicare, yeah, he's the internet aristocrat. Yeah, unfortunately, it's like the outside of the Conjuring films suck. Like, the Conjuring films are decent, but then the Conjuring, the spin-off films. I mean, I just think it's James Wan. James Wan's a very good director. Or became a very good director. I don't know if he was always a good director, but he became a decent director. He certainly became better with storytelling and putting a film together and all that stuff. I think he's just a lot more polished. That's kind of the charm of The Conjuring 1 and 2. You know, a lot of horror films today, they kind of lose it after a little bit. They set up a fun premise and they have the scary moments, but then the mythology or the characters in the story kind of fall apart. The Conjuring films, what I think why they're so successful is that you do actually really like the couple, the Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga couple, and there is this thing going on. It actually does kind of develop, and you kind of want to go on this journey with this family. And in the second film, and you kind of go through a narrative. There's actually kind of a narrative, and it has beats, and you actually get to a third act where all the pieces come together. I just think it has better narrative structure than a lot of the other big horror films. And you actually kind of go on this journey. Okay, let's go to The Predator, which had what everyone calls a terrible opening weekend. They say it's a bomb. I don't think it's actually the worst opening weekend, considering I don't think this film was ever going to do well. Granted, this has been a summer, and now we're getting into the fall of surprise hits. I mean, The Meg, Crazy Rich Asians, The Nun, Mission Impossible overperformed, Black Klansman's doing well, Hotel Transylvania 3, Incredibles 2... Ant-Man, Mamma Mia, Jurassic World. I mean, these are all big hits. So it's definitely been a successful year. The Equalizer 2. So I understand why a lot of people thought maybe The Predator would open a 40 million. I can get why, or 35 million at the lowest. But I'll just say this. I don't think The Predator is a big franchise. I really don't. I only think it's so popular. I think even if you made a great Predator movie, I think the biggest opening weekend you could hope for is like $45 million. I don't think there's like a blockbuster Predator movie right now. That doesn't mean it won't change in the future. I just think right now that's not where it's at. Also, let's just be clear. The marketing was bad. The trailers were shit for this movie. This movie looked bad. You could tell it was going to be... That first trailer was so disappointing. I was like, this looks like AVP. I was so disappointed because I was so excited for this with Fred Dekker and Shane Black. $88 million budget. That doesn't include marketing. $24.6 million. $30 million foreign, $54 million worldwide. So we need to just go through the Predator franchise to really break this down. I mean, there's a lot to cover here. Okay, so let's start with Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, all the way back in 1987. That film had a $15 million budget, $12 million opening weekend, $59 million domestic, $98 million worldwide. I'd say that's a very successful movie. Adjusted for ticket price inflation, that film made $141 million. So that was definitely a hit blockbuster movie. Just like Die Hard and Hunt for Red October. So that was the one time the Predator franchise really was huge. I would say this was a hit all around. Critically, this film did well. It's actually not super critically acclaimed, but a lot of people love this movie. Very popular. And, you know, it made $100 million worldwide on a $15 million budget. It's very successful. Can't take that away from it. Now let's look at Predator 2, which by many people is considered a major disappointment. Film a lot of people don't like. I like Predator 2 a lot. I think Predator 2 is really good. I don't get the hate for it. I especially think the third act's really good. Predator 2, when you adjust ticket price inflation, made $67 million. So honestly, once again, not terrible. $57 million worldwide. Certainly did not do as well as the first film, critically or financially. And a lot of people consider this one of the worst sequels ever. I actually think this is a really good sequel. But, you know, once again, people can feel different. Then we get Alien vs. Predator from Paul W.S. Anderson, who's a horrible filmmaker. That had a $60 million budget, opened at $38 million, but we have to include that with the Alien franchise. Wasn't a bad opening weekend, but honestly, $38 million wasn't great either when you consider that this was the fucking Alien and Predator. Only made $80 million domestic because obviously it had a huge second week drop of 67% to 60% because this movie fucking sucks. And no, it's not underrated. I hate when people try to say this film's underrated. This film's fucking shit. $172 million worldwide. So this film actually wasn't that big of a hit. People seem to think this film was some huge hit that it wasn't. You know, I mean, it's not like it bombed, but this wasn't a, like, it dropped really bad at the box office. It could have been a big hit. So it would have made about $120 million. Then we get to Predator. Well, no, we have to go to AVP Requiem first, which is, as far as I'm concerned, easily the worst film in this franchise. That film made $128 million worldwide, $41 million domestic. I think this film cost around $50 million. I can't fucking remember. $54 million if you adjust it. Oh god, this is the guys who made Skyline. Ugh. Then we get to Predators, which a lot of people are very hyped for as the spiritual sequel we were supposed to get. We got it from the director, who's a Nimrod. The director of Vacancy, which is a terrible movie. Starring Adrian Brody, Topher Grace, Danny Trejo, Lawrence Fishburne. A lot of big names. I remember a lot of people being excited for this movie back in 2010. I really remember there being hype for this movie and the trailers and all that. I actually think this movie's okay. I remember this being an enjoyable, okay movie and definitely one of the better sequels. Like, it felt like it was going in the right direction. This had the same opening weekend as this current Predator film, but back in 2010. So that just lets you know. Now, adjusted for ticket price inflation, this film would have made about $62 million. So I think we have to look at this film to see how this Predator is going to perform. I would say this Predator will be lucky to make about $60 million domestic. And worldwide, honestly, it should be able to do a little bit better because the international box office is just bigger now than it was in 2010. You know, I honestly think this new film's going to make a bit more than $75 million. But also, the budget of this film was lower, $40 million. If this film could have made $100 million, you know, $175 million worldwide, it would have actually looked pretty good. I actually think $127 million worldwide, though, on a $40 million budget, I don't think that's terrible. Certainly the studio wanted more. But really, they didn't have any major stars. I mean, Adrian Brody's not a movie star, as much as they try to act like he is. He's just not. And I'm not some Adrian Brody hater, but anyway, this is an okay sequel. But yeah, $24 million 8 years ago. Which now this would be over 30 million. So this movie opened better than the current Predator film. So that's where we're at now. We're now with The Predator, which was hyped because Shane Black was coming back, who was a writer on the original film. He starred in the original film. You know, he wrote Lethal Weapon, one of the greatest action movies ever. He worked on Lethal Weapon 2. He worked on Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Long Kiss Goodnight, The Last Boy Scout, all terrific. Iron Man 3 made $1.2 billion. And then recently he directed The Nice Guys, which actually wasn't a big hit, but very acclaimed, popular movie. $50 million budget, $62 million worldwide. Actually, yeah, it wasn't that big of a hit, I'd say. It was actually kind of a bomb, but very well-reviewed movie. He got to make that after the billion-dollar grosser of Iron Man 3. And then Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was more of a cult film. But here we are with him returning with Fred Dekker, who directed Monster Squad, which Shane Black was a writer on. Also, Fred Dekker directed the amazing Night of the Creeps. Thrill me. So Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps are both amazing. I was hoping this film would be more in the vein of those. I was hoping when I read Fred Dekker, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be great. This is going to be like Monster Squad with adults instead of kids. It's going to have the action of Monster Squad. They're going to do the Universal monster thing. Because the Predator, like the Xenomorph, was like a modern-day Universal movie monster. So is Freddy Krueger. These were our modern-day monsters. These were our modern Dracula and Creature from the Black Lagoon and the Mummy. And the Predator is one of the great monsters of movies. A lot of the design stuff came from James Cameron, some of those ideas. It's a brilliant design. Really great mystery. It's the ultimate hunter. This cast was packed, though, you know. You had the bad guy from Logan. You have Olivia Munn. You have Jacob Tremblay, Thomas Jane, Jake Busey, Edward James Olmos. You had Keegan-Michael Key. Well, you know, nobody who's like a giant name, but all actors people know. Jacob Tremblay is coming off very successful films, like Wonder. The trailers were just bad. I think this film had terrible marketing, and then the reviews didn't help. The marketing was bad. Everyone was talking about this film looked like shit. Then the reviews are bad. You know, if this film had gotten like 90% Rotten Tomatoes, people might have been like, oh, might have been able to go a little higher. And if the marketing was better, I think they could have got a better opening weekend. But I still think the highest they could have hoped for was like 35 million. I think that's the highest they could have hoped for. And I don't think the budget for this movie should have ever went over 50, 60 million. And I know they did a bunch of reshoots and they had studio interference, and I'm not ignoring that. And they wanted to add CGI. Jake Busey playing the son of Gary Busey's character from the second film. So I'm not ignoring those things that goes into this. But still, it's, you know, this isn't a great opening weekend, especially when you consider that this opened in 4,000 fucking theaters. That's a wide release. 24 million to 4,000 theaters is pathetic. 6,000 average is pathetic. I don't see how this film's going to make a profit. It would have to have a huge international pool, which maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe it will. But I'd say still they'd have to make over $200 million worldwide for this to be a modest break-even-esque success. This is honestly Shane Black's worst reviewed film. I think, yeah, because this wasn't Nice Guys and Iron Man 3 didn't get Iron Man 3 didn't even get terrible reviews. This is 36% on Rotten Tomatoes or something. This is his worst reviewed film, like outside of like Riding on Last Action Hero. This isn't one of the better reviewed Predator films. I just say this is a disappointment. I was excited about this movie. I'm not going to be cynical and act like I was new. I thought Shane Black could make a good Predator movie. I thought him writing on it would be good. His dialogue and is able to write character banter. I thought Fred Dekker was working on it more. I was excited about that. I wanted to see him come back to movies. I was a director I was a big fan of. I honestly wish he would have directed the movie. I think he would be a perfect director for a Predator film. I was excited when that first trailer came out, though. I think I did a live stream watch it, and I was like, this looks bad. Looks like a bad B movie. Very shocking. The trailer really didn't work, and then the next trailer didn't work, and the film just didn't look very good. And as time's gone on, it was getting more worrisome as we were reading stuff about the behind-the-scenes trouble with this movie. I'm sure Shane Black's not happy with this movie. I'm sure he's not pleased with how the final product came out. That's kind of a cool poster, though. So yeah, I was very, a year ago, I was excited as hell for this movie, and now here it is, just like a lot of times, it just came and went, it just, not great, and then isn't really making an impact, no one's really loving it, and this just happens. It's unfortunate, especially Thomas Jane, who's underrated. I feel bad for Shane Black too, yeah, but it's not like he needs people to help him. I don't feel bad for Shane Black. I think he probably cared about this movie, and then, it probably got taken from him a little bit. What, you doxed me? There's no way they just spent $20 million on marketing. That makes no sense. It's got elements that are good Predator movie, but I definitely think it's just a bad movie. Just positive standards. I don't know. Mortal Kombat I like, but he's just not very good. His shot composition, his lighting's really bad. It's very amateur. Noel's stuff looks better than Paul W.S. Anderson. He's just not a very good director. His stuff looks terrible. It's like Uwe Boll. It's like, how do you shoot movies that way? Thoughts on Park Chan-wook's movies? They're fucking amazing. I mean, what the fuck do you want? They're great. I would compare him to Scorsese, actually. I think he's that talented. I mean, I've often said he's the David Fincher of South Korea, but I actually consider those South Korean directors kind of like New Hollywood. That's what I would compare them to, and I would say he's like the Scorsese of that group. I certainly wouldn't say he's De Palma. Although, Steven Soderbergh's kind of become the modern-day De Palma, his output. Yeah, I'd say he's one of the best living directors, like top 10, 15 living directors, and hasn't made a bad movie. There's not one bad. There's lesser films, but huge film. I want to do my Patrick Williams response. Unfortunately, I actually do have to go today and pick someone up. I rarely talk about Uwe Boll. What the fuck are you talking about? I never bring him up. What do I think of Batman 89? I disagree that no one is loving it. Me and my friends loved it, and there are a lot of positive reviews. There's a bad one. People just aren't going to see it. I mean, most of the reviews are bad. When you say there's some positive reviews, you're ignoring that 35% on Rotten Tomatoes means that only 35% of the reviews are positive. That's not a lot. And I don't think people are loving it. I think maybe, like any movie, some people love it, sure. Like, yeah, if you loved it, that's fine. But yeah, when I'm saying, like, people aren't loving it, that means that, like, it's not doing well. The cinema score is not good. It's like people went and saw and loved it. It's not like it's got a bunch of... It's not like it's 50-50 on reviews. You know, so it's one of those things. Like, it's clearly not popular. That doesn't mean there's not people who don't like it, obviously, but... Yeah, no, actually, yeah, Mortal Kombat, if it was rated R and actually had the gore of the game, it'd be the best video game adaptation of all time. It still is. I like Dawn of the Dead, Zack Snyder. That's the one really good Zack Snyder film. I really like Dawn of the Dead. Fred Dekker made Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps. So someone on YouTube doesn't have a bias or is scamming and is legitimate, but somebody who writes a review for Rotten Tomatoes from a newspaper is a scam. I'm sorry, I think YouTube has just as many bullshit reviewers as people who are bloggers on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it's any different. I don't think Chris Stuckman is any better than a Rotten Tomatoes review. In fact, he's on Rotten Tomatoes. So I disagree with that premise. I mean, Dawn of the Dead's just shockingly good. I mean, he had a James Gunn screenplay, and where the fuck did that cast come from? The acting in the Dawn of the Dead remake's really good. Like, where the hell? I don't think it's better than the original. I don't think it's an improvement. But that's cool if you feel that way. I think the first film is so much better than the remake. I think the humor, the satire hits a lot more with commercialism and people being like zombies. I don't think the new film has that element at all. I think it's just a really good genre film, genre exercise with really good acting and pacing and comedy and all that. But the first film, I think, has deeper subtext. I think that scene where the SWAT team's going through, I think that scene's brilliant. I don't think the new film is anything that good. I think the ending's a little bit better. I like, I mean, don't get me wrong, the remake's great though. It's one of the best remakes. I mean, it's a remake that really should be looked at. Kind of like the remake to The Thing, or the remake to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's so weird to me. I don't know, people really? The original one is the only terrible Romero zombie film. That's so weird to me, how anyone could feel that way and certainly think that that's like a worse movie than Land of the Dead or something. That blows my mind. Like, really? You think Land of the Dead's better than Dawn of the Dead? That just blows my mind. No, I just don't think, I don't take any I don't think YouTube critics in a high regard. It's not like I think a YouTube critic's more legitimate than a critic who gets a review on Rotten Tomatoes. No, the John Carpenter thing remake, not... Yeah, I think you're insane. Land of the Dead better than that blows my... I think you're a crazy person. And that one he made, that Island one, that's a horrible movie. Like, the last two movies Romero made were like that Island of the Dead or whatever. That's a horrible movie. Like, George Romero made this. I mean, my favorite's probably Day of the Dead. I think that movie's like a master. I love that one. Day of the Dead's incredible. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead's an amazing movie. Yeah, no, yeah. Choke on it! No, he's great. Day of the Dead's just fucking awesome. Tom Savini's work is arguably the best work of his career in that movie. The fucking... Honestly, the original stuff George Romero wanted to do, it was gonna be like this 3-hour epic. It sounds amazing. It's an awesome movie. It's just a gem. I love it. I got that Blu-ray. I'm a huge Day of the Dead fan. I guess it's true. It didn't have a pie fight. You got me there. Yeah, I'll go check that podcast out. Yeah, no, Armin White's reviews are the best. I like Armin White's trolling. I enjoy Armin White. I think people just hate on him. I think they don't enjoy. I think he's very funny. He's a very entertaining guy. Just reading his reviews is hilarious. I think people give him enough credit. Like I'll take an Armin White troll contrarian review over some fanboy hype review any day of the week. So yeah, what's there to say about The Predator? Disappointment, financially, critically, all around. You know, there was a lot of hype for this movie a while ago when people announced it, but I guess you can make the argument the Predator franchise just isn't that big, and the marketing wasn't there. There's a lot of factors. It's really hard to blame it on one thing. People often say release date and all that stuff, but I just don't think it was a very good idea. I don't think a Predator film is something people want. The mainstream wanted. I think some of us wanted it, like fans of Predator, but I don't know if there was demand for a new Predator movie. In the same way, they were able to get a lot of hype for Prometheus when it came out because it had that amazing trailer, and they kind of presented it as something new. Where it's like, well, hey, you can come watch this film even if you haven't seen the Alien films. Whereas this film really felt like, don't you like Predator? Here's Predator. You know, and I think it even being called The Predator might have been a bad idea. I think maybe they should have went with a different title or something like that. I think they made a lot of bad decisions. Yeah, George Romero did look, because God, he used to be great. I mean, Martin's one of my favorite vampire films. His original Dead trilogy's great. The Crazies. I mean, he was a really talented filmmaker. Creepshow's terrific. He's a good filmmaker. I've been to that mall, the Monroeville Mall, many times where they shot Dawn of the Dead. I've met a bunch of the cast members of Dawn of the Dead and people who worked in Dawn of the Dead. I have a bunch of stuff signed from the zombies from Dawn of the Dead and crew members, and you know, heard stories about Dario Argento and Romero's friendship. And I mean, I lived in Pennsylvania for a few years, right around Pittsburgh. I mean, I've been to the areas where they film stuff. I've been to Johnstown. I've been where they shot Night of the Living Dead. I mean, I've been to those places. I've been to the locations of all those movies. I mean, I'm a big fan. And when I lived in Pennsylvania for few years. I mean, I grew up in Texas, but when I moved to Pennsylvania, I made sure to go check out where George Romero filmed stuff. Big influence on me. I mean, Night of the Living Dead to me is one of the scariest movies ever made. I still think it's scary. It's one of the only films that legitimately scares me, and it's so crazy to me because that film's in black and white. It's cheap as fuck. The zombies' makeup looks like shit. It's just something about atmosphere, and it's like a perfect episode of The Twilight Zone. It's like just shows you what you can do with good camera. Kind of like Repulsion by Polanski. If you're really good with your camera work and your use of music and sound editing and just how you pace them, things can be scary. It's just those people being in that house with the zombies outside, something about it has this high tension. And I don't know why. When they first go in the house and they're like board, you know, they're putting boards on the doors and stuff, it's scary. It's tense. Every time I've ever seen that movie, it's creeped me out. It used to really scare me when I was a kid. Night of the Living Dead. In fact, the first time I saw it, I saw the Savini remake of it, the colored version. Haha, that could be taken wrong out of context if the colored version of it. But the original was the colored version. But I the first film I think is so creepy. It's in the public domain, so anyone can watch it. Yeah, George Romero's been a very important part of my life. I never got to meet him, unfortunately. I met a lot of people who worked with him that told me about him. I never actually got to meet him, which is upset. I've even met Tom Savini. I've met a lot of people that worked with Romero, and but I never got to meet him. He was like my my great white whale. Never got to find. He was the size of a whale too. Pat, what remakes do you hate the most? I mean, nothing comes to the top of my head right away. I'm sure there's something that I hate that's a remake. Yeah, I've read Roger Ebert's review of the movie. It's not weird if you don't like that part of the movie. I don't think a lot of people like that part of the movie. Yeah, I know. So I find it scary. It actually, Night of the Living Dead creeps me out. Oh, Alien Covenant does suck. It's a horrible movie. Oh yeah, Psycho. Gus Van Sant's Psycho. That's bad. Gus Van Sant's, yeah, that comes to mind. I mean, I'm sure there's remakes I fucking hate. It's just nothing's popping up in my head right now. I'm sure there's remakes I totally hate that piss me off. The Oldboy remake I don't hate. I just don't think it's great. I don't hate that movie. I don't think it should have been made, but I don't think the Oldboy remake's bad, actually. I don't think it's a bad movie. I mean, honestly, my favorite zombie film is probably Return of the Living Dead, the comedy. The punk rock comedy one from the 80s where Brains comes from. That's where the whole brain thing came from. That's probably my favorite zombie movie. The tone of that movie. The act. I mean, I love the pitch of that movie so much. No, me and Blood Money, that's what we talked about. Just recording it. What are we going to be? Orson Welles and Peter, Badongovich, or the guy that Last Picture Show? We're going to be Truffaut and Hitchcock. Just put a tape recorder down. That'd be funny. We've had this conversation. I'm not kidding you guys. I hate that I don't record with them. We had a conversation about Garden State like a week ago where we talked about how we loved that movie as teenagers and how that was this indie film that was such a big deal to millennials. And if we talked about if it was a horror film, which was hilarious, and then we tried to go back and watch clips of it because neither one of us had watched it in years because we both knew it was terrible now. And we couldn't even. And we went to go rewatch clips together, and we're talking, and we're trying to watch clips of Garden State together. They'll have fun looking into the infinite, exploring the infinite abyss. And the guy being like, "Hey, you two," and we couldn't even finish it. We were cringing. Like Blood Money's on the other end. Like I can't even get through the first 10 seconds. And we were just talking about Zach Braff's career and his fuck beast nature. Just talking about Garden State because we were talking about watching Garden State as teenagers and how great it was to us, and now watching it now we can't watch it. It's so cringe. And like, why did we used to like this movie? Why did we like it? Like Natalie Portman's character is horrible, but if you watch it in the right context, it's a fucking horror film. There's that scene where she takes him to her house, and she's like, "Have you ever done something that no one's ever done before?" And then she does that weird thing where she's like, "Rah, rah, rah," with her body. Now imagine if somebody actually did that to you in real life. If you were sitting on the end of a bed of a stranger's house, this girl, and she did that, that'd be so scary. I'd be so fucking scared. Like, this chick is gonna kill me. She brought me to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, and she's in front of me, like, twisting her body and face around, and then, like, rah, rah, rah. Like, if you didn't know it, that would be the scariest fucking thing ever. Like, holy shit. But it's played like, this is quirky. No, and like, Zach Braff, like, he tried to kill his mom. It's played as like a drama, but he's a kid and he pushed his mom down the stairs and tried to fucking kill her. And then he comes back to his hometown after she's dead. And then at the end he gets the necklace like a fucking serial killer. Like, he's like, I need this because I finally got the bitch. He came back to finish business with the father. I mean, we talk like Garden State's a fucking horror. At the beginning, he has the dream about the plane crashing, and he's just sitting there calmly, like Dennis Reynolds or something. It makes me think: did he cause the plane crash? Is that him having a fantasy sequence? Like, ooh, I can't wait to kill all these people on the plane.